be right back. And leading off the two title fights that we have this weekend, we have Sergei Pavlovich at -105 taking on Tom Aspinall at -115. These two were supposed to fight in September of 2021, but the stakes are much higher now as they are going to be fighting for that interim title belt after John Jones was injured and had to fall out in his fight against Stipe Miocic. Pavlovich is an interesting one. He has one loss in professional mixed martial arts. He trains with American Top Team, which is kind of funny because when you look at the man, he is one of the scariest, largest looking Russian brutes that meets the eye. He is a first-round KO machine, and we haven't really seen his wrestling tested in a long, long time, which I think is going to be a theme of this preview is we're going to talk about the different folds to Aspinall's game going up against such a knockout artist and someone that packs so much power in Pavlovich that you would expect in the heavyweight division, right? That's what comes with this division is you're getting huge guys just beating the shit out of each other and knocking each other out. That's what Pavlovich is. But then you bring on someone like Tom Aspinall, who's got that creative footwork. He's got amazing speed. He's going to give Pavlovich a lot of interesting angles. Both these guys haven't seen a second round since 2017 for Pavlovich, and Aspinall hasn't seen a second round since 2016. So, Rick, I'll let you kind of talk a little bit more about Aspinall. And you can really put a lot more shine into his body of work than I can. So go ahead.
Yeah, so Pavlovich, I'll talk about Pavlovich quickly because his game has much less layers as you spoke to. But really, I mean, he uses that gigantic frame that he has and that 6-inch reach to be able to complement the speed and power that he's got because it is of like a Francis Ngannou level of scariness to other opponents. And if he's able to land that shot, pretty much any analysis that we're about to give on this fight could just be thrown out the window because at any point, Tom Aspinall can enter the pocket, get hit by one of those right hooks, and that's the end of the fight. But that's also heavyweights in general. And the reason that I think that Aspinall will be able to get out of the way of those exchanges or not be able to get clipped as strongly is because of that speed and quickness. I mentioned Pavlovich's speed. He doesn't have the same level of speed that Aspinall does. He is truly a middleweight fighting at heavyweight. And his dad, I'll tell you, his dad is his coach, has been his coach for a while. And if you've turned on the ESPN previews on ESPN, the UFC previews on ESPN this week, you'll have seen a lot of the different segments because they're really blowing up Pavlovich and Aspinall this week. And as they should. Both these guys took it on short notice and are putting a lot of risk in their career as far as the success goes. Because a lot of ways on this championship fight. So, but really, it's that versatility of Aspinall's game. He has that speed. He has striking. He's got leg kicks. But what I really like about Aspinall is his fight IQ. And in a fight like this, it's going to be imperative that he's able to either be all the way out or all the way in. You don't want to stand in that intermediate range where Pavlovich can almost close his eyes and start throwing hooks because it only takes one. And I don't want it to make it sound like Aspinall's power isn't formidable. And he's got all sorts of knockouts on his record as well. With 9 to date, with 4 submissions. But really, it's his versatility that I think will end up being the biggest factor here and being able to wear out Pavlovich. And the biggest factor in that was in that Blades fight that Pavlovich had recently, his last fight back in April. We saw Blades, before getting knocked out just 3 minutes in the fight, we saw Blades really start to be able to work Pavlovich. And towards the end, I know it sounds like, oh, 3 minutes, like, how do you know? That last minute of that fight, there was a noticeable slowdown in Pavlovich to where he started breathing heavily. His mouth was open. He started just sort of trying to walk down Curtis Blades. And so Aspinall is more athletic than Blades is, despite tearing his ACL 15 seconds into his fight with Curtis Blades. And I think that so long as he avoids that power shot early, if this fight makes a second round, it's all Aspinall. It's all Aspinall. And even in the first round, he could definitely be able to clinch up Aspinall, get it to the ground, and find the neck pretty quickly. But again, all of that could come out the window real quick if Aspinall gets clipped by a right hook by the Russian himself. Not Russian, but
yeah. So
yeah.
I'm just going to put it out there. I want Tommy Aspinall to win. Like, I'm a fan of his. I think that he's the better mixed martial artist holistically. It's just something about it, Rick. My gut tells me that Pavlovich is going to hit him with one and put his lights out. and that's what scares the shit out of me. So my pick here is Pavlovich, even though everything says to go with Aspinall, and the odds are starting to say that people are going to go with Aspinall too. But that's not my bet. My bet is going to be that this fight makes it to round 2 at plus 104 on FanDuel. And that goes completely against everything that we've just said, where there's, yes, these guys haven't seen a second round since 2017, 2016, yada, yada, yada. Like, it's a long time since these guys have made it to the second round. You look at the interviews. You look at some of the stuff these guys are saying in the buildup. And I get it. You can't read into the buildup too much. But what I will say is it's clear. Aspinall's spoken about how emotional and important this is to him, that he's able to be recognized this opportunity and how seriously he takes it. It's on Aspinall to dictate the pace in this fight, in my opinion, because I don't think Pavlovich is just going to rush out there and try to throw. He knows of the risk that he does, where if he is too reckless, Aspinall will be able to latch on and take advantage of some type of miscue in his position. The same thing goes for Aspinall. Aspinall is not going to be rushing into a certain way because he knows that if he does any miscue position, he's going to get his lights put out. I think these guys are going to spend a decent bit of time feeling each other out, at least for the first 2.5 to 3 minutes, where maybe once halfway through that first round, though, you'll see a little bit more action. But I really expect a slow start the first couple of minutes where you're getting solid value at that plus 104 for the fight to just make it out of the first round. If you're feeling even riskier, go ahead and take the over 1.5 because it's plus 175, which is awesome. But I just think that it's good value for what it is. Like, you just have to make it through one round. And yes, these guys have not made it through one round in 6 or 7 years, depending on who it is. But this just feels like a lot of people are going to be slamming that under and putting it in parlays and stuff. And that's just not me. I'm not going to be going that route.
No, and to close off on my end, I mean, I've got Aspinall at minus 123 is the odds that you can currently get him at as I'm recording. And I've got a 1.5 units on that. I think that in my eyes, and this might be a little tinfoil hat far out there, but there are certain fighters that live, eat, and breathe MMA, and there's not many of them. Volkanovski's one, John Jones is one, and I'm not trying to compare Tom Aspinall to them in the greatness sense, but he's a guy that is continually assessing his game and is just psychologically brilliant. He sees everything in slow motion, and he's got the speed to be able to land and get out of the way. And I'm believing in that here. I'm believing in that prep that he's gone and done over the past 1.5 years. That Marcin Tybura fight that he had back in, I think it was July, that was his first fight in a year since that ACL injury. And I can only imagine the amount of tape and study and training that he's done to continue to improve his game. We didn't get to see it in that Tybura fight, but I think that we'll see it here. I think that he's going to be able to get it done here. I'm excited to watch this fight.
Yeah, like I said, I'm pulling for Tommy Aspinall. I mean, I'll be singing Tommy Aspinall, Aspinall, Tommy Aspinall the whole time. But Pavlovich is my pick. I've got it to at least make it out of the first round. Rick is going with Tommy Aspinall on both pick and bet. And as we typically do on Pilsners and Prelims, we do go a little bit longer on our title fights as well as our main events. So we're actually going to bring in our producer here, Ben, to speak a little bit more about his commentary for this fight, because this is going to be one of the most electric fights of 2023, possibly, as MSG often puts on for us.
Yeah. So listen, Tom Aspinall, he looks like a dad, but I guarantee you that every opponent that has been hit by Tom Aspinall wishes they hadn't been hit. And if it's me, looking at Pavlovich makes my head hurt. He's like a boss fight, right? I mean, the guy's insane. But here's the thing. Sergei Pavlovich has very, very few weaknesses that can be exploited on the feet, right? And he's going up against a guy in Aspinall that's still talking in every interview about how bad his knee is, right? Because of that, I lean very slightly Pavlovich. I really want to back Aspinall here, but Sergei is literally in ridiculous size, shape. He has a 6-inch reach advantage. I think he's got a 2-inch leg advantage or something like that. It probably factors here. However, if Aspinall can get it to the mat or even just like bring it down a few inches from standing height, he probably has the advantage. I just think that knee is so suspect, right? Gun to my head, I'd probably take the over 1.5. I didn't even want to bet this fight, but I'd probably take the over 1.5 because I feel like this fight could end in hundreds of different ways to die, right? But I also trust each of these fighters want that result more than enough, really, to stay in it for 7.5 minutes, right? And I'll go a unit on this over 1.5 rounds.
Yeah, that was the good value play for me too. And I mean, I sacrificed the juice and went for 2.5 extra minutes at time, where I was like, I'll take the lesser payout, but at least get that 2.5 extra minutes of time. But I love the value play. In fact, I mean, on a personal note, I probably will ride with you on that one because I think that it's such good value for this fight. But yeah, I'm totally with you on the Pavlovich train. I hate it. I really want Aspinall to win, but the knee is suspect. That's a good point. Rick, any closing thoughts, or you ready to move on to the main card?
Yeah, I think we're ready to move on to the main event here. I've got to summarize. We're sort of a little bit everywhere. I've got Tom Aspinall, if I can speak. I've got Tom Aspinall. You guys are a little bit on the other side with Pavlovich, but I think we identified just how close this fight is, and that's what the odds are. So I'm excited to have it and ready for the main event. So we've got Yuri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira, and we will see you there.